Hey guys, it's the Metal Blade 5, and ever since I made my top 10 games I like but everybody hates, I've noticed that I've had a lot more unpopular opinions regarding video games than I thought. So as such, I decided to make a video about it since I wanted to talk about this, but couldn't really find a place to. I was considering doing this as a countdown, but I couldn't decide on the placement of these opinions, so this is just some normal random video. Plus, these aren't all of my unpopular opinions, just the ones I feel like talking about the most. So for the first one, let's do one I've mentioned before, being that in my response to the Eager Raptor Zelda sequelitis, I briefly mentioned that I think that A Link Between Worlds is better than A Link to the Past. I haven't really seen anybody else say this, so I'm still going to count this as an unpopular opinion. Now don't get me wrong, I think A Link to the Past is a great game. I'm not saying it's bad, but I think that A Link Between Worlds took what A Link to the Past did right and made changes and improvements upon it. This is mainly due to the wall mechanic, as I think it makes the gameplay in dungeons far more interesting, as it opens the way for a large variety of puzzles and fighting a few bosses as well, which I think the game takes full advantage of. The other main reason, as I also mentioned in my response to the Eager Raptor, was that the game gave a better emotional connection to the player in my opinion. One of the reasons why I love Twilight Princess so much is how the game keeps you interested in the plot by making you emotionally connected to the world and characters. This is something I think A Link Between Worlds does too, as for example, like I said in my response, the sages are more interesting than the maidens, since you get to meet and learn about them, except for one, which makes you more motivated to save them, unlike the maidens, where Zelda is the only one you meet, and the others are just generic girls you've never seen before and will never see again. So it becomes more of just about beating the game rather than actually caring about the characters. This also applies to Lorule in my opinion. I think Lorule is so much more interesting than the Dark World, since, without spoiling anything, the backstory and lore is so much more interesting in my opinion, and it makes sense for it to have a similar layout to Hyrule since it's a parallel universe, unlike the Dark World, which is the Sacred Realm corrupted by Ganon, so it makes no sense why it has a similar layout to Hyrule. My next opinion is also Zelda related, as I personally think that Zelda 2 is the worst Zelda game, excluding the CDI games obviously. Now this isn't because of the side-scroll aspect, as I know it was the second game in the series, so it didn't have an established formula. My only issue with the side-scroller approach is that I thought it was unnecessary since the original Legend of Zelda was well received and great when it came out, even though it has aged horribly. My main issue with Zelda 2 is the difficulty, and it's not because it's hard, but because it's unfairly hard in my opinion. When you reach the third dungeon, you don't just reach a massive difficulty spike, it's like a 90-degree angle. I also think that the game has a lot of cheap enemy placement, which makes it really unfair and cheap at times, and when you get a game over, which will happen a lot, you are sent back to the location where you start the game and have to walk all the way back to where you were, which I think is tedious. I hate games that punish you so severely for messing up. I know a lot of people like Zelda 2, and I know that it is Lucajin's favorite Zelda game, but I don't know, I just think the other games are just so much better. Again, excluding the CDI games. So moving on from Zelda, how about we talk about Mario? Let's see, what Mario opinions do I have on other games I actually like? Oh, I know! I personally think that Luigi's Mansion 2, or Dark Moon as you Americans know it as, is better than the original Luigi's Mansion. Now once again, the original is a great game, so I'm not hating on it. But I think Luigi's Mansion 2 improved on the formula since, unlike most people, I think exploring multiple mansions was a good thing as it gave way for more variety in level design. You've got the traditional mansion, a forest mansion, an abandoned Clockworks factory, a snow mine, and King Boo's personal mansion. Also, I think they put extra attention on the enemies of these games, as all of the ghosts are really entertaining and funny. The star of them all has to be the Polterpuff. It's one of the cutest enemies I've ever seen in a video game. It has a lot of comical moments with Luigi, and it's even Miyamoto's favorite enemy in the game. I also thought the game had a better plot and bosses than the original. The bosses were more interesting and menacing design-wise for me, and had their own unique ways of being defeated. I just like the concept of them all being things that were being possessed by possessor ghosts. As for the plot, in the original, you were merely rescuing Mario from King Boo, but this time, King Boo destroys the Dark Moon, which is an ancient relic that was keeping all the ghosts peaceful, and Luigi, with help from Egad, has to put it back together while, spoiler alert, saving Mario once again. Now the next opinion, which is also Mario related, I know is going to piss off a lot of people, but it's also in regards to something that's always puzzled me, which is that Baby Park is the most overrated Mario Kart track in existence. It's an oval. Why is this considered one of the best tracks in the series? Now, I'm not trying to get at people who like Baby Park. It's just that it's always confused me why it's treated like the greatest track ever, because it's just an oval of flat land. I personally think it's super bland. The Excitebike Arena in Mario Kart 8 does a much better job in my opinion because while it is an oval, it has ramps, speed pads, and hazards which change every time you play in it and the length of the track is longer. Meanwhile, Baby Park has nothing! I remember back when I heard the rumor that the second DLC pack was going to have Baby Park and Koopa City, or Neo Bowser City as you Americans know it as, which is one of my personal favorite tracks in the series. I first heard it on GameXplain's discussion on the first DLC pack, with them gushing over Baby Park and hating on Koopa City, which is the opposite to my own opinion. In the comments I saw one person say that they didn't want Baby Park because they thought it was bland, and my reaction was, FINALLY! Somebody else who has the same opinion as me, because I'd never seen anybody else who didn't like Baby Park other than me. Luckily, Koopa City did end up being in the DLC pack, which made me super happy, but so was Baby Park, and it pissed me off more. All they did was just put it on a slant to make an excuse for using anti-gravity. Couldn't they at least have put a second oval on the ceiling to make you go upside down? Plus, they added a whole Nintendo version of Disneyland in the background with tons of rides, and I thought, why the fuck can't we go there? Baby Park just screams wasted potential to me. You could have gone on roller coasters and Ferris wheels with hazards, but instead, we just get a flat oval. And before people comment, I know some people like the track because they say it's more chaotic with items going everywhere due to the small size, but I find it more annoying since you could get blindsided by a Koopa Shell or banana or whatever and lose as a result. I've had this happen plenty of times to me in Mario Kart 8. Plus, it still doesn't make up for the bland level design in my opinion. This is how I legitimately believe Baby Park was created. Hello, Mr. Miyamoto. The development of Mario Kart Double Dash is coming along very smoothly. We have already developed 31 of the 32 tracks. 31? The game ships tomorrow. Wait, what? Quick! We need to develop the last track in the day! So next we have another one I've mentioned before in my top 10 favorite legendary Pokemon, which is that I like Rayquaza's official pronunciation and hate the fan pronunciation. When I first heard Rayquaza's name spoken in the anime, I thought it sounded awesome, Rayquaza. It just sounded really cool to me. However, a lot of Pokemon fans think that this pronunciation sounds really stupid, even though it makes sense since it's a combination of Ray and Quasar. As such, people who hate the pronunciation choose to call it Rayquaza, which in my opinion is a pronunciation that sounds stupid. It's because of the qua part of their pronunciation, because it doesn't sound anywhere near as cool. Chugga Conroy, who's someone who does this, argues that Rayquaza sounds more epic, but it doesn't to me. Ever since I first heard that pronunciation in Chugga's Pokemon Emerald LP, I always thought it sounded like a posh snob saying it. Welcome to this super posh Pokemon fan club, where all the richest and upper-class Pokemon players gather. We are quite the group of expert players. For example, one of our recent members caught a Rayquaza. Ha 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 ha. And while on the subject of Pokemon, I guess I can cover one other quick unpopular opinion, which is that I actually like Klefki. Just because the idea is so dumb and ridiculous, I love it. It's a floating keychain. It always reminds me of the first time I encountered a Klefki in the Lost Hotel in X and Y, and I was just laughing my ass off for like 3 minutes straight over the fact that it was a set of keys. Also, while the idea is dumb, I still actually like its design, and I love how nonchalantly they introduce it in the anime when it's a set of keys. So for the next unpopular opinion, I don't like the battle theme of Xenoblade Chronicles X, which is known as Black Tar. When I first got into a battle that took a while in Xenoblade Chronicles X with a normal enemy, I got a better chance at listening to the music, and I like the beginning of the track. But then about a minute in, it goes downhill for me. This is because about a minute into the music, it turns into a rap, which sounds really generic and corny in my opinion, and doesn't fit the game's atmosphere or the music tracks. Here, I'll play a bit for you.
In the distant land, we're stuck on a whole different planet. No peace looking at the sky, trouble's always all around, so we stay quick with the guns and cannons. Standing as long as we can until we get all dolls up. Then call off that song, we'll blow the guitar, dealing with lives messed up.
When you're battling potentially a giant alien monster on a completely different planet, in a game with tons of sci-fi themes, and a plot regarding the destruction of Earth and surviving on a new planet, Why would rap music be considered fitting? It's just so weird and out of place to not only hear rap music in a Nintendo game, but a pretty fucking serious game as well. I'm not saying the rest of the soundtrack sucks. I actually like the other music tracks I've heard so far in this game, with the exception of the new Los Angeles theme with the in the background, which I also think is weird and out of place. Unfortunately, I haven't heard the entire game's soundtrack since I'm nowhere near finishing it. I got this game for Christmas, and I haven't even reached the part where you get to use the skills. And this game is 5 times the size of the original Xenoblade Chronicles. Where were we? Oh right, the rap. It's not only do I think it sounds generic and corny, but I personally think the lyrics are really lame too. And the whole rap thing to begin with just seems really forced and pointless. They might as well have just done this. Moving on to non-Nintendo games, I personally prefer classic Mega Man over Mega Man X. Now I know people are going to be super pissed because people generally prefer Mega Man X, but hear me out. I'm not saying the X series is bad. I love the X series as well. Mega Man X1 is my second favorite Mega Man game behind Mega Man 2. And the difference between how much I like both series is very small. When it comes to plot and characters, the X series absolutely trumps the classic series, and I personally think both series' soundtracks are equally as good. I absolutely love X's Sky Lagoon theme from Mega Man X4. It's actually my favorite theme in the entire X series. The only reason why I like the classic series a little more is due to one small thing in the gameplay that makes playing the classic series slightly more enjoyable and less stressful than the X series, which is the difference between the E-Tanks and Sub-Tanks. In the classic series, you have E-Tanks, which you use and instantly refills Mega Man's health, making bosses more comfortable to defeat. Meanwhile, in the X series, you have Sub-Tanks, which work just like E-Tanks, except for one difference, and while this is one small mechanic, it makes the X series just a little more stressful for me to play, which is that you have to fill them up before you can use them. Unlike E-Tanks, which are consumable items, Sub-Tanks are items you always have after you collect them. However, you have to fill them. Whenever you pick up a health drop that exceeds your current health, the remainder goes into your Sub-Tanks. The positive is that you can use these as long as they have health in them, even when they're not full. The negative, however, is that only when they are full will they refill all your health like an E-Tank, and after using one you have to collect more health drops to fill them up again. This makes the X series a bit more stressful for me to play because if I use a Sub-Tank on a boss and die anyway, I'm gonna have to waste time grinding health to fill it up again. This is especially annoying if it's against the final boss, since you'll only be able to grind off 1 or 2 enemies in the hallway before the fight, and have to run back and forth for them to respawn. Also, the classic series, in my opinion, has more consistently good games, since the low point in the main numbered classic games would be Mega Man 5, since it didn't add anything aside from beat, while the low points of the X series are Mega Man X6 and X7.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
But there is one thing I can agree with everyone about the X series, and it's that X4 has terrible voice acting.
What am I fighting for?
Now, my next unpopular opinion, which is in regards to another Capcom game, and since I'll likely never be able to talk about this game anywhere else, I decided to include it in this video. It's a game that I heard quite a few negative things about, but when I actually played it for myself, I enjoyed it a lot and didn't understand some of the negative things said about it. I like Devil May Cry 4. Devil May Cry was one of those franchises that I always wanted to play, but never got the chance since they were all on consoles that I don't own. But after I got my PS4 and found out that Devil May Cry 4 was being re-released under Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition, I finally saw it as my chance to play one. However, I was still a bit skeptical because I heard quite a few people on the internet say it was a half good game, half bad game. But since I really wanted to play a Devil May Cry game, I decided to get the Special Edition anyway. It was either that or get the Reboot Definitive Edition, and I am not touching the reboot because I hate all the characters in it. Then when I got around to playing the game for myself, I really enjoyed it and thought it was great. I don't get why it's considered a half-bad game. Now, does it have flaws? Yes, but I don't think they're serious enough to make it a bad game. I think the reason why a lot of people consider it half-bad is because for the first half of the game, you're playing as a new character called Nero rather than Dante, the protagonist of the series. And honestly, I actually like playing as Nero. I definitely prefer playing as Dante, since I feel more like an actual badass devil hunter, since Dante has more available options. And that was much better as playing as him. Here's a screenshot of all my ranks on my first playthrough. Notice how much higher and consistent my ranks are with Dante. But still, I do like playing as Nero as well, since he does have a unique mechanic of enemy manipulation thanks to his Demon Buster, which is his demonic hand thing. However, one thing I do agree with people on about Nero is that his character is nowhere near as good as Dante's. Nero felt like Diet Dante to me. Dante just appears more badass and cool in this scene. For example, I absolutely love the scene where Dante gets into an overacting competition with one of the bosses. It's just hilarious. Now, another thing I do agree with people is that when you actually get to play as Dante in the second half of the game, you're just backtracking through Nero's levels and finding the majority of Nero's bosses again. It makes the game appear unfinished, as there are only a small number of changes to these levels, and it makes the contrast of how much better I am at playing as Dante than I am with Nero more apparent. Plus, another issue I do have is that when you do play as Dante, you only get to play him for like 6 missions. But really, those are my only major issues with the game. My only other issue is that the camera can be really awkwardly placed at times, but I didn't really have too many issues with that. I just have a lot of fun playing this game because you kill tons of demons using flashy and badass combos, and the boss battles are really good even though you are fighting most of them twice, including a boss rush, and the music is awesome. And with the special edition, I still have 2 more stories to finish, which I'm looking forward to. Virgil's story, which I've already played the first several levels of, in which I can say I love playing as Virgil as well, and Trish and Lady's story, which I haven't started yet. The only reason why this wasn't on my top 10 games I like but everybody hates is because I hadn't played the game yet when I made that countdown. But still, if you were skeptical about Devil May Cry 4 like I was, you should give it a chance. The special edition on the PlayStation Store isn't very expensive. It only cost me like £15, I think, and you get way more than enough for that price.
Satisfied.
So, moving on to a different third-party game series by a different company. How about Sonic? Yeah, the Sonic the Hedgehog series has always been full of memorable characters, whether it's for good or bad reasons. But if you were to ask me who my favorite Sonic character was, it would probably spark a lot of negative or at the very least mixed reactions. It's not Sonic. Sonic is actually my second favorite character in the series. Here we go. Preparing for all the Sonic fans that are about to hunt me down. My favorite Sonic character is... Shadow. Is it safe to come out? Okay, well, I know this is going to spark outrage among Sonic fans, since a lot of people don't like Shadow because they complain about how he's all edgy and that. Now, despite what a lot of people think, I don't think Shadow is that edgy. Sure, he has a dark backstory, but I think it was only until Shadow the Hedgehog when people started calling him super edgy. While Shadow the Hedgehog is a terrible game due to its crap game design, I also think it's the main reason why people don't like Shadow, since I do think they made the game way too dark and serious. I mean, they gave Shadow guns! What the fuck, Sega? And they also had that stupid plot twist of making Shadow part alien. What the fuck, Sega? I think that when people think of Shadow, they attach him more to this game, as people always refer to Shadow's iconic line from the game, which is, "Where's that damn Full of Chaos Emerald?" So while I do think Shadow the Hedgehog partially ruined Shadow's character by making him too edgy and just using stupid storytelling, I think that in every other Sonic game, Shadow is a great character. The main reason why Shadow is my favorite Sonic character is because he basically has the type of character that I love in all forms of media, which is the serious badass who has a more soft and emotional side. Shadow is without a doubt a badass, a character type that I already love like with Dante, and there's tons of awesome abilities that Sonic does not possess. On most occasions at least, such as Chaos Control and Chaos Blast, and does act pretty serious around others, except for ones that he's a little bit more close to like Rouge and Omega. This takes me over to the emotional part of Shadow's character, which mainly stems from Maria, the granddaughter of Dr. Gerald Robotnik, who is also Dr. Eggman's grandfather. Shadow was created by Gerald Robotnik to be the ultimate life form, like Gun, who are the military of the Sonic universe, stopped supporting Gerald's plans when he built a giant laser cannon called the Ark. As such, they stormed the Ark, arrested Gerald, and killed everyone else on board. This included Maria sacrificing herself to save Shadow's life. Shadow was pretty much completely influenced by Maria, as in his debut appearance in Sonic Adventure 2, he joined Eggman's side because he thought that Maria wanted the annihilation of humanity for some reason. But after he realized that he was a dumbass, Shadow switched sides because he finally remembered that Maria's final words were that she wanted Shadow to protect humanity and secure a happy future for all of Earth's population. I always like these types of characters because not only are they cool and badass, but also possess a kind heart and care about others they're close to. And I think Shadow is one of the best examples of this, which is why he's personally my favorite Sonic character. So, this next opinion is going to be the last opinion I'm covering in this video, because if we went over all of my unpopular opinions, we would be here longer than a full uncut playthrough of Xenoblade Chronicles. And fiddly enough, this last opinion is actually about the future, so it makes a good point to end off on. But anyway, I'm looking forward to Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE. I hate the English name they gave for this game. So for the rest of the video, I'll be referring to it as Shin Megami Tensei Cross Fire Emblem, since that's what it originally was. Back when this game was announced as Shin Megami Tensei Cross Fire Emblem, I was pretty excited. It seemed like a cool idea, even though I'd never played a Shin Megami Tensei game. I was more excited for the Fire Emblem side of it. Then, of course, we went about 3 years without any new info, until the game was finally showing off in the April 2015 Nintendo Direct, which triggered my reaction of, huh, that's certainly not what I was expecting, but it looks cool. Since the game ended up being more of a crossover of mechanics from Shin Megami Tensei and Fire Emblem, even though it's more like Persona Cross Fire Emblem. I still really liked the trailer, as the game looked like a lot of fun. However, that can't really be said for the rest of the internet. I knew from the trailer that there would probably be mixed reactions, since the game ended up being drastically different than what everyone thought. But more of the dislike, I guess, of the game stems more from the heavy Japanese themes being used in the game. Tons of Japanese locations, such as Shibuya, and references to Japanese culture are in this game, and to a lot of people, that is a turnoff. This takes me over to one big issue I do have with the game, and that is its marketing. Admittedly, the marketing for this game, in my opinion, has been really bad. I think it might be some of the worst marketing I've seen for a video game. Rather than focusing on the gameplay, which is the most important aspect of a game, and why I'm actually looking forward to this game, along with it being Fire Emblem, they instead focus on the Japanese and music themes of the game, which isn't going to appeal to people outside Japan unless they're really into Japanese culture. I know that these are the two big themes of the game, so of course that needs to be shown off in the advertisement, but the biggest thing that you should be advertising is the gameplay, which we've barely seen since the first trailer over a year ago. Instead, Nintendo and Atlus continued to show all the Japanese and music shit, and in the last Nintendo Direct to talk about this game, as well as revealing the English title, which I hate, they also showed that you can make adverts. Why? Just show gameplay in your actual advertisements! Unfortunately, I think this game is going to sell horribly because of the marketing. A lot of people actually call this game Weeaboo the Game as a result. Plus, that stupid English title! I hate it because, like with the advertising, it doesn't show that it's an RPG. If you didn't know anything about this game and heard Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE, you're not gonna think it's an RPG! It sounds more like a singing or dancing game instead. The Japanese title for this game actually translates to Illusory Revelations Sharp FE, which I think they should have just called it that, since it has an RPG-esque title, but still has the music theme in it due to the sharp or hashtag as I always see it as. Now, for why I'm looking forward to this game, simply because when you actually see the battle system, it looks like a lot of fun. Enemies all have their own weaknesses to either weapons or elemental magic, like in Fire Emblem, as well as pairing together with your other party members to pull off powerful super attacks, which look really flashy. Plus, of course, it has Fire Emblem Awakening characters in it, so of course I'm interested. Even though I couldn't recognize all of the characters due to their drastic redesigns. The only characters I instantly knew when I saw their mirages were Tiki, Varja, and Virion, since Tiki and Varja are obvious and Virion has his blue hair. Also, like with Persona, at least from what little I've seen of Persona, since I've also never played a Persona game, the characters do appear to be relatable in a way and unique, as they're all kind of going through the same line of wanting to accomplish their dreams. Although, I don't like how much they focus on this girl's tits. And the music that I've heard from this game sounds amazing. I especially like the main theme of the game, titled Reincarnation. I only have two other worries with this game. One being censorship, since one scene in the game has been censored, and the other is voice acting, since Nintendo have confirmed there will be English voice acting because voice acting in Nintendo games have either been amazing or terrible. And because I thought the Japanese voices from what I heard were fine and probably fit the game better due to the game being set in Japan. But since there is going to be English voice acting, I have one request. Get Matthew Mercer back as Chrom! But regardless of the crap advertising and what all the people that think of this as a weeaboo game think, I'm still looking forward to this game since I think it will be a lot of fun. It got good reviews in Japan, so let's hope.